Hello and welcome to the New York Empire podcast presented by Greatest Ultimate Bag. I'm Dan Hilton and welcome to the 2024 season. As a little disclaimer at the top, so many of the big questions to be answered this preseason, there's a lot of them. League MVP Jeff Babbitt is off to Boston. Other exits including co-head coach Charlie Hoppus. There's a new Frisbee, a new name for the entire league. There is so much to go over, and I'll be getting to that in the next few weeks or even between the first or second game of the season. But first, let's start with some exciting news within the Empire, which is the arrival of Liam Haberfield from the Atlanta Hustle and Connor Russell from the Carolina Flyers. Welcome to the Empire to both of you, and welcome to the show, guys.
Hello.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
Great. So before we go through, and we will, as is the initiation with the Empire podcast when we meet some new friends, we go through your Frisbee journeys, but I want to start with the Empire part of the equation, because by the time this comes out, we might have already had our first game, or maybe it's still a few hours to go before the first game. So after joining a team that has won 2 straight championships in 2 undefeated seasons in the Empire and 1 win away from the all-time win streak, 31 that could be broken against Montreal in the home opener, what has been the tone in practices and in communications from leadership about this vibe of this team and the stakes of what is a team that has not lost in 2 years? Connor?
Yeah, I think coming in the tryouts, it's been really clear, set the tone in terms of hard work, discipline, especially on the defensive end. I think most people in the tryout process were trying out for defense. It was very clear that that was a big priority for us. And really getting into the true practices, it's been a lot of O-line against D-line, but also playing a little bit of mixed O and D and really trying to gain camaraderie with the whole team as a whole.
Yeah, and Liam, similar question. I mean, you've been to 2 practices now by the time we're recording this. So what has been that, just with not even talking about the X and O's, just that feeling, that vibe that you've gotten in arriving to this team, not even in comparison to Atlanta, but in comparison to other team, just showing up, hitting the ground running?
Yeah, I think that one thing that's kind of standing out to me is confidence, and I think confidence breeds confidence. All right, it's like you show up and everybody knows that we've got a bunch of really good players and we know how to play frisbee, and I think that that's like a really cool environment to kind of step into, and I think that it, like I said, it breeds confidence within myself, and I think that that is reflected in like everyone across the board.
Yeah, and Liam, we heard Connor talking about D-line a little bit, but the expectation is that you're going to be a regular fixture on the O-line this season. And the term hybrid is really starting, I think, to be understood in Ultimate, but it seems like the Empire have some of the best O-line hybrid players and have had for the last few seasons, including, of course, Ryan Osgar, but Jack Williams might be the best in the game at that position. And then yourself. And I actually add Charles Weinberg in there as well as kind of a hybrid player. I think his throws was he underrated across the league, and we might see more of that this season. So how exciting is the idea of more fluid roles? So not just handlers and cutters on that O-line, but more fluid roles. And how important is it to learn each other's tendencies as fast as possible?
Yeah, I think that you're right on the money there with like tendencies. Like a lot of being a hybrid and like working within an offensive system that has a lot of hybrids is just understanding other players' tendencies and understanding that, you know, somebody like Jack, who's a maybe slightly more tending towards throwing hybrid, like he's going to come back and fill in towards that handling space a little bit more. And then it's just about that, like kind of balancing that out and trying to understand like where am I going to be like most effective when there's like a certain combination of players on the field.
Yeah, and then kind of moving that down the field and around the field with those O-line sets. Do you feel like you're jumping into something that's kind of already there with likely Ben Yacht potentially playing on the O-line again and having a bit of a system with the O-line? Do you feel like you're kind of selling in, or do you think that there's a bit with head coach Anthony Nunez now with Charlie Hoppus moving on from the team? Do you think that it's a bit of a reset, or is it more, hey, let's keep what we have and build upon that?
Yeah, it feels pretty natural and it feels pretty fluid. Like even, you know, I've been to 2 practices and I've taken part in one, and it feels like there is that element of fluidity. And I think that, you know, there's not a huge amount of like structure around the offensive schemes, especially once like points have started. So I really enjoy that, and that's like really like how I like to play, and it seems that that is like pretty reflected across that O line for sure.
So, Connor, for those who haven't seen you before, you mentioned D line, that's where you'll be. What would you say you're bringing to the Empire? What can Empire fans look forward to your game this season?
Yeah, I think coming from Flyers, I really honed in just being a like that big D guy. A lot of times, being that guy that could guard bigger handlers, but also being someone that could guard bigger guys downfield. I think I really honed in 2021 when we won the championship with Flyers on being able to guard guys like Twan and Yacht. And you can't really stop guys like that, but you have to be able to contain them and be able to effectively apply pressure at certain points. And that's something I'm trying to do every practice now on Yacht. And it's a tall task, but I feel like it's making me prepared for all of the matchups we'll see this year.
And Liam, for your game, you're a bit more unknown in American circles, though the last 12 months have been more than an introduction. So I think most people in the larger Frisbee community are getting more comfortable with your game. But a similar question for you. If Empire fans are, before that first home game, are looking to make signs for you about one part of your game, now obviously maybe they'll do it about that wonderful set of hair you have. But if we're just talking about your game and what you're bringing to the field, what's that thing about your play that they're going to be most excited about and want to make signs about?
That's a great question. I mean, I love to throw the disc. Like, I mean, I don't know anyone that plays frisbee that doesn't. So, and hucking is like pretty fun, and I'm pretty good at it. And so, I think that like that's definitely something to look out for. But I also like releasing downfield and kind of going to the end zone as well, as Connor will know from last night's practice.
He
No,
beat me
but
deep once. It was one time he beat me.
hey, it was like my one cut that I made deep. But no, I like. I mean, I truly like enjoy being a hybrid on the field. Like I don't feel like I do too much of one or the other. And I you know, if you're looking at making a sign, then make it saying throw a flick huck or something like that.
All right. Well, Liam, you might, since you've only been here less than 2 weeks, you might have a little bit of jet lag. So I'm going to give you a little break. So take a little mini nap, but pay attention because we're going to focus on Connor's ultimate journey here. We're going to focus on you first. I said Connor. So we're going to start in Westfield, New Jersey, where you played for Westfield High School, and a place that is synonymous at this point with Anthony Nunez, who's the head coach of the Empire. You also played 6 years with Devil, also synonymous with Anthony Nunez. So obviously, my first question for you is, what has he meant for your ultimate career?
Yeah, I think I've known Nunez since I knew of Nunez since I was, I think, 10 years old. He started, I played with him a little bit in summer league, I think, when I was in seventh grade. So he was always around. He might pick fun at me a little bit for being the awkward, lanky kid. Um, but he really showed me the next level that I could take my game. He taught me what it was like to be a good teammate, buying into a full strategy, team strategy. So he really helped me with that. He was always an advocate for me, whether it was when I was going down to Wilmington. He was really always there. And I mean, also a shout out to Ryan Boleyn, who is good friends with Nunez and coaches with him at Westfield. Um, Both of them really set me up for success in terms of giving me that high level strategy and allowing me to play when I was in middle school with the high school, and just allowing me to meet a lot of people in the community at such a young age.
So yeah, we head down to Wilmington now. You also played with a guy, I think his name is Jack Williams, and I've already warned people. I talked to Jack at media day that the Jack Williams MVP campaign. Let's say this is part two, where it has begun. So obviously, Connor, some glowing reviews of your former college teammate in Jack Williams. Now you were an underclassman, but an underclassman that did play as a freshman in 2017 during, and for those who don't know their ultimate history, because now I'm starting to feel a little bit old that I had graduated quite a few years before that 2017 Jack Williams Nationals run to that championship game. So what was your experience overall as a teammate? Sure, but I mean, yeah, from the inside, tell us about that Nationals run and feeling like maybe in the moment, I think we're seeing something special here.
Yeah, I mean, whenever you have Jack on your team, you feel like you can win at any moment, and you think that's just a college thing, but it obviously turns out to be more than just college. It's club, it's pro. But yeah, I was a freshman on that team. Came in, knew a little bit about Jack. I think he took off probably about like a year or two before that. Played U24s before, so I knew it was someone that I wanted to learn a lot from. And he turned out that I was paired with him as my buddy. So I was like, okay, I got to learn a lot from this guy. I put a lot on myself to try to learn from him. And I think at that point, Jack was still pretty new to the game. He was probably only 4 years in the play, like playing very competitively. So a lot of times I've asked Jack some questions, and he would just be like, "Well, just do this. It's as easy as that." It's like, okay, I'll go try that, but I don't think you're giving me enough to really learn from. But I think it shows how easy the game comes to him, and he's learned over time. Especially we're seeing it now in practice. He's really able to teach us these principles and the key footwork to certain plays on offense and even on defense. And now he's just a super well rounded player. So I mean, at Wilmington, it was a pleasure to play with him and learn from him.
Yeah, and then eventually you became one of those upperclassmen. So as a college student, while still at Wilmington, you did make the Flyers back when they were Raleigh back in 2019, and then in 4 years with them, beat the Empire in the Empire's last loss in the 2021 championship game. So what do you think the secret sauce to that Flyers season was, and what kind of lessons do you think you learned from that championship weekend experience?
Yeah. Yeah, it was a crazy year. It was coming back from COVID. I think we had a ton of buy-in. I think something that is not stated enough in the UDL is buy-in. You need your full team to be bought in and ready to go for the whole season. And throughout that time back, we were so excited to play, and we really had a schedule from the beginning in terms of practices and games, what we wanted to accomplish and learn. And in the regular season, I think we lost to the top three teams in the East that year, and they were all by 1 point. So we were really close in all of them, and we finally got one win over Atlanta in the regular season, and that really set us forward to go into the playoffs strong. And I think one of the things that it really taught me was that this ability to apply pressure throughout a game. It doesn't. You don't need to get a break every time you're out there, but if you're able to apply pressure, no easy offensive holds over the course of the game, it's going to break them down. So having integral pieces, whether it's your small squirrely guy that's guarding handlers or cutters, or your big tall goons in the back, they all need to be on the same page, be able to communicate, and continuously kind of keep them in a box to contain them as much as possible. It's not about always going for the D, but getting them to throw more passes.
Yeah, I got to figure out who are the goons and who are the squirrelies. Between if those are the only two options defensively, we got to figure out who's
Oh
who.
yeah, it's a binary system. It's a
Yeah,
binary system.
you can figure out who's who. So now, Liam, shifting over to you, for fans who may not know your story, you hail from Wellington, New Zealand, and most of your frisbee career consists of playing both open and mixed club in Wellington for the Wellington Wildcats and MDC, and then with the New Zealand U24 mixed team. So you've been playing in the States now for 2 years. And have you noticed any major differences between how the game may be taught or practiced here as opposed to New Zealand, or is ultimate and frisbee just frisbee?
In some senses, frisbee is just frisbee, but I think the key difference that you see over here is just the foundational level of a lot of the players. Obviously, there's like a much bigger player base, and players come through like high school, college with like an already really like great skill set, and so that means that like when time comes for players to go through club, it's like they've already got a lot of that skill set nailed, and it means that when you're going through your practices, when you're going through a season, you can just apply a lot more just strategic learning to a team. Like you can throw a strategy out and have players go out and execute it. In New Zealand, like the foundational level isn't really quite there, and so it means that what players that come through and play in your club, like a lot of the club learning is like fundamental work, and to be honest, like fundamentals is completely fine to go through and like work on throughout the season, but it means some of that like high level thinking and that high level strategy is lost a little bit. So I would say that that's probably like the main difference.
Yeah, then joining Atlanta in the what was the AUDL last season, who or what can you credit with getting you incorporated into the team so quickly? So you don't have to go into too much of the trade secrets of what brought you to the U.S., but yeah, just kind of go through that process because it is a big jump to go obviously all the way from New Zealand and come and play in Atlanta.
Yeah, I obviously wanted to progress as a player, and I think that coming over to North America is like a pretty handy place to do that. And I really do credit the coaching and the grouping of players in Atlanta for just helping that integration like really quite seamless. And a lot of that was just trust and like my ability and trust that I was going to be able to kind of do the things that I know how to do and just apply that without having any like second thought of like, should I be doing this? Should I be doing that? And like massive shout out to Miranda Knowles. Like she was a huge part of that. Like she's an like really, really excellent like strategic coach, but I think something that's potentially underrated and not talked about as much as just her confidence and her trust in her players and the way that she like communicates that to players, like the way that she gets people to understand that like you have her full trust and you have her full backing to kind of do whatever you want, like you need to do to help the team.
Yeah, and especially, even the X's and O's of it when we talked about Miranda and her time in charge of Atlanta, the groundbreaking stuff with those zones and to play zone in the AUDL at the time and then now in the UFA, you're going to get beat sometimes and you have to have full utmost trust in your teammates because
Yeah.
in zone you could look silly if
Yeah.
there isn't all the buy-in from everybody. And speaking of Atlanta, by the way, Liam, you'll be heading back down to Atlanta the first week of May to meet your old team. So who are you most looking forward to facing off against for your former team?
Yeah, Tyler Randall and I had, he's a good buddy of mine, and I lived with his family while I was in Atlanta. But we caught up when I was coming through. I went out for lunch, and we already had this discussion about like, who am I potentially going to get matched up against, and who I was kind of looking forward to seeing. So we threw some names out, but it's kind of interesting to think about just because we don't know like who's going to play and who's going to play on defense. Like I think they're not 100% sure where their pieces are going to fall. And to be honest, like I was like, if I got up against Tyler, like that'll be pretty fun like matchup. He's a pretty good defender, and yeah, I think I'm excited to see all of the guys again. But I think it'll be a good challenge to kind of be on the other side of the disc and no doubt cop a little bit of banter from the sideline and the crowd.
Well, yeah, you didn't give us anything viral. You didn't give Atlanta any billboard stuff with that answers. So afterwards, I'll have to hear about the fun stuff and the banter that occurs.
Hey Ryan, have you ever thought to yourself how you could fit everything you need for one weekend into a single bag?
And there's an incredible layout block.
Oh, there's a Callahan. Mike Dross did it for New York.
From cleats to jerseys to discs, pennies, water bottles, the greatest bag can help.
And this is going to be a greatest here.
This is going to be a Callahan for Ryan Drost.
Thanks to Greatest Bag for being a sponsor of the New York Empire.
Now, Liam, you've got not golf and baseball like originally thought, and that's why through the power of editing, we get to get rid of Dan's mistakes. And shout out to Connor Fortin from back in the day. No, Nardwuar gets all his information right. I'm not right all the time. But instead, Liam, you corrected me. It was rugby and cricket, which are two games that I think the average American fan and most Ultimate players are not familiar with. So from those two games, what originally drew you to Frisbee?
Honestly, like Frisbee was just like a thing that I started doing with like family friends, and then there was a team that was happening at our high school. But honest, like those two games, there's a couple of factors. Like one is that if you're going to play rugby in New Zealand, like, and even cricket to an extent, like they're the two main sports in New Zealand, like you need to be like crazy good. And it's just like trying to make like, the top 1% of players in the States. Like you have to be really, really good, and you have to be able to like devote like a huge amount of time and energy to it. And I think that the interesting thing about Frisbee was like, there's no like clear progression path in New Zealand. It's like, you can just potter around and play social league like your whole life if you really want to, and so I kind of was drawn to just being able to play and compete and just like navigate what level I was trying to play at, like as it kind of came around. And so I've just like steadily progressed through those levels that are available in New Zealand. And I think that like, yeah, if you were really trying to play like cricket or rugby, it would be a pretty tall order.
Well, I think that's a really good point because I find that, listening to Connor and speak, and obviously I could play recreationally and I play in the background Frisbee, but I think that's a good point that you're seeing more and more in the Frisbee game or in the UFA now, players who chose Frisbee as opposed to saying, Frisbee chose me. Because I wasn't 1% of the other sports that I came from, but I was like, you know what? Frisbee's a sport that I could be higher percentage than I was in the other sports I came from. But then you have those players, as I said, with Connor, where Connor, you said, all right, even though I had a background in basketball and other sports, I'm going to choose Frisbee.
Yeah, I made the decision, I think, to quit baseball when I guess sixth grade was my last year of travel baseball. I had golf around, and I actually quit Frisbee for half a semester for golf and decided I missed Frisbee and came back. But I think the opposite of Liam, I always felt like there was a progression in Frisbee, and it might be a states thing. I fed really into knowing who other kids were that were my age playing, who were the best ones. I got beat by them a lot when I was playing for Devil in like the semis and finals, and wanted to play the USA teams, wanted to play in college at a top level team. I wanted to play for Ring of Fire. I wanted to play for the Flyers. It seemed like there was always a progression, which is really interesting to hear Liam say the opposite.
Yeah, and that's why Liam is playing for the New York Empire this season, and it's a challenge and something that I think both of you, obviously, in your first year with the Empire, will be facing and a high level. All right, so lastly, before I let you go, we're going to play everybody's favorite game. It's called New Jersey, New Zealand, or the American South. And actually, I should probably get a better name, but you get the idea. So in this game, even if you don't know or have never been, I'm going to need you to blindly rank these things and explain why for three very similar things from three very different places, if that makes sense. So are you ready to play the game?
Yep.
Okay, I want to see how competitive you guys are. So we're going to rank these beaches based on reputation, even if you've never been there. I assume that you've probably heard of them or at least heard of one or two of them. So we have Wildwood, New Jersey. We have Wilmington Beach in North Carolina. And we have Scorching Bay Beach in New Zealand. Can you rank those beaches?
I'll say the lowest is Wildwood. Can we agree on that?
I 100% agree with that. I think we can all trust that that is right.
All right. That's a good one. Liam, give me your spiel on the New Zealand one.
Scorching Bay, small beach in Wellington. Wellington's a harbour city, so it's not really known for its beaches, but Scorching Bay is probably one of the best ones in the area. And they've got a cool cafe that sits right across the road. Some of the seats actually kind of sit right above the beach, and that cafe is called Scorchorama, so it's pretty cool.
That definitely knocks it up a little bit. Yeah, I mean, Wilmington's, or I would say North Carolina beaches in general are some of the best in the country. Yeah, I'm gonna put Wilmington at the top. I should go to New Zealand and figure it out myself, but I'm gonna stick to Wilmington's beach.
So we sound like we got North Carolina 1, and then New Zealand 2, and then New Jersey was also on the list. All right, so next one, rank the seafoods. New Jersey surf clams, most used in dips and chowders on the Jersey Shore. New Zealand crayfish, and gator tail and conch fritters from the American South. You have a favorite?
You're going to need to tell me about the conch. What do you call that? The gator something?
The gator tail and the conch fritters. Yeah, that's a little bit more in the Florida area than where you guys were in North Carolina and Atlanta.
I've had it before.
Atlanta restaurants where I didn't know what they were, and I was a bit too afraid when I went to Atlanta, so I stuck to the grits and the collard greens. But It's
I'm
the idea is it's all seafood. That's what we're talking about here.
I'm pretty sure I've had the gator before,
Hmm.
and I mean, it's like cliche to say it's like fried chicken or like
It
chicken
is.
bites.
Yeah.
I just got in the clam chowder a little bit. I really never had it, so I haven't had the New Jersey specific one. Uh, but Liam, tell us about what was the last one?
It's a New
Is it
Zealand crayfish. Have you ever had New Zealand
crayfish?
crayfish?
Yeah. The New Zealand crayfish. It's like a lobster. It's like the same thing as a lobster. There is some difference. I can't remember what it specifically is. But I mean, fresh as you can get. You can actually most like if you were a diver, you could go. You don't even need a tank. You can go diving, like free diving, pick up some crayfish. They just like sit around under the rocks like this, and then you just like dive down, pick them up. But they're crazy good, like crazy good, especially if they're like fresh, straight out of the ocean. You just can fry them up with a little bit of butter, real good.
I
Sounds
think
like
that's sounds like number one.
yeah. It sounds like we got a winner.
I
So
would I would back
Yeah,
I would back it in for number one.
all right, so we got crayfish, then we got the surf clams, and yeah, I think I agree with you, Connor. Gator tails a bit like chicken. So, all right, so now we're gonna rank, and I think there's gonna be a one here, and then the other two. But we're gonna rank these traditional celebrations, dances, and performances. And Liam knows where I'm going, probably with this one. So, first, Connor, the Jersey Shore fist pump, of course, a really memorable, important dance and celebration. And then from the South, we have the Charleston, which is the one that I learned in musicals growing up. So that's named after the city of Charleston, South Carolina. And then finally, of course, we have the New Zealand haka done in celebration and performances, generally, again, in celebration or victories and things like that.
the haka is pretty cool.
Yeah, haka's pretty cool, and it's versatile. It is versatile. It's traditionally done as like a war dance, so it's like you're laying down a challenge to the other team. But then on the flip side, like you were saying, you do it in celebration as well. So like it's pretty cool. You see a lot of videos of athletes returning home, and like their families and friends are all like at the airport, and they'll do like a haka for them. We used to do this at school where we would go over to like the government house, which was right next to our school, and all of our like year group would do a haka for like international guests and stuff. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, I've not seen. I can't say that I've seen the other ones before.
Oh, the
I've seen the
Jersey,
fist pump for sure. I've seen
yeah,
this fist pump.
yeah, that was a big part of my childhood. Fortunately or unfortunately, um,
You did
pretty
it.
versatile.
You do it.
Oh yeah, my seventh grade, eighth grade dances, we would whip that out. Um,
Hell yeah.
I think we put the haka at the top. Uh, I don't know the Charleston one, so Charleston's a pretty solid city, but I don't know the dance. So just based off of clout, I think it's at 30.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think our,
reckon
our,
the
our
fist
theater
pump.
our theater fans are going to be a little offended, of course. I mean, it's the most versatile, traditional. It's not the box step, but it's traditional theater dance. But yes, the Jersey Shore fist pump. Unfortunately, to your point, I was in college when the Jersey Shore show was coming out, and it was a lot. I didn't think I would survive. I felt like I would come back at night with black eyes, and it was fist pumping everywhere. It was just a disaster. All right, so now two more. We're gonna rank these burly sports teams in who you'd want to have your back we just had WrestleMania here in the United States, Philadelphia. So a WrestleMania inspired 40-man battle royal. So what team are you joining to have your back in this 40-man battle royal? We have the All Blacks, the national rugby team in New Zealand, the Atlanta Falcons, or the New York Knicks.
I think it's definitely between the All Blacks and the Falcons.
And they're equal amount per team, right? We
Of
take the
course.
top
Yeah, the
ratio.
same number
Okay,
for
I just wanted
everybody.
to
Yep.
make sure. Okay.
All right.
And
all
we're
right.
also Julius Randle is he's healthy. He's fully healthy for this.
Ooh, okay.
I think the Knicks are too injury prone and get demolished. As a ginormous Knicks fan,
They've
That-
got reach. They've got reach, but
Got reach.
yeah, probably
Yeah.
too injury prone.
they'll get run over by someone.
Except Jalen Brunson, who is closer to my height than both of your height, oddly enough.
Yeah, I think it would have to be the All Blacks,
Yeah,
especially with no pads. Like,
Yeah.
I want to say the All Blacks as well, but it's mostly because I know the Atlanta Falcons are not a very good team. So I don't know much
That's
about
fair.
NFL, but living in Atlanta last year, I got the gist that if the Falcons weren't that good.
Yeah.
All right, that one is pretty straightforward. So finally, this is probably the least exciting one, but I left it for last. But actually, probably most importantly, because the Empire are heading out on the road for interdivisional games this regular season to both Atlanta and Minnesota. So in the spirit of that, also welcoming Salt Lake, we're going to rank these airports. Okay, you've got JFK Airport in New York. You've got Hartsfield Jackson Atlanta International Airport, so Atlanta International Airport, and then Wellington International Airport. So, of course, Connor, I doubt you've ever been to Wellington International Airport, but you've obviously been to the other one. So let's rank those airports.
That's easy. There's a giant like eagle hanging from the roof in Wellington Airport, and what's the movie? The Desolation of Smaug. Is that a Hobbit movie? With the
Yeah.
giant dragon. They've got the giant dragon like sitting in the like chicken area, and he opens his eyes and his mouth like opens and closes. And also, you don't have to wait like 2 hours in security lines. It's like
Yeah.
maybe 15 minutes max.
Sold.
I'm
Yeah. All right.
I got to take a work trip on Sunday, and I'm flying into Atlanta, so it better be pretty good, or I'm not gonna have a good time. So I put Atlanta 2 and JFK at 3. It's probably the most annoying New York, New Jersey airport to get to as well.
Now,
So
that's actually the hottest take. Oh, for me, JFK is easiest. So I would say JFK. I actually
yeah.
picked JFK because I felt like I have my experiences with JFK are better than LaGuardia and Newark, even.
Oh,
Um,
I'm a Newark homer for sure.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I knew where I was getting into that territory, but I should have said Newark because, again, this was a New Jersey against New Zealand against the American South game. But I feel like we won. There was general consensus across the board, so I think we're all winners here. So I want to say thank you guys for picking up your first victory of the early preseason, at least, and hope those wins carry over into the regular season.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dan.
All right, so thanks for joining the show to those two, and thank you for joining us as we begin another season. And do follow us on all social media for all those great season ticket offers and everything else going on around the UFA. So from the entire Empire family, we'll see you soon at a local game.